Found my 21 female boyfriend's 25 male old Twitter account and it's bad. Okay, so this morning I was trying to find silly pictures of the guy I am dating on Twitter for a Christmas collage and I stumbled across an account of his which hasn't been active since 2015. To preface, we've only been dating for about a month and he is always super sweet and respectful and just nothing like the account I found today, but now I honestly feel uneasy and disgusted. The account I found was filled with sexist, racist, misogynistic and just plain mean tweets of his from when he was in high school. I know the account is his because there's picture of him, and even the way he holds himself in those pictures is generally intimidating. It really doesn't seem like the guy I know, which makes this all so much more confusing. I get that these tweets are old, but 5 years isn't that long. Can someone really change that much? How can some part of him really not believe these terrible things he said? I am honestly really sad. I don't know what to do and I don't want to confront him because I genuinely feel like I have no idea who he is anymore. Talk to him. Tell him you were looking for old pictures and you found this account. His response will show you if he's changed. He'll do one of 3 things. 1. Genuinely apologize and have remorse. 2. Fake apologize, flustered with fear of losing you or your body. Or 3. Try and justify it. But above all, you've been dating for a month. If this is really a deal breaker, you have no obligation to try and work this out. You could butt out while it's easier. I get that these tweets are old, but 5 years isn't that long. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know my beliefs were radically different just 2 years ago, let alone 5. Honestly, just bring it up with him. Don't be aggressive or anything, just mention you found it and go from there. I get that these tweets are old, but 5 years isn't that long. Can someone really change that much? 5 years is a very long time for people under 25. The brain isn't fully developed until 25. As another 25-year-old, people change drastically between high school and their mid-20s. 5 years isn't that long. If you're the same now that you were at 16, that's more disturbing than a guy growing up and becoming mature. People can change, but it's allowed to be a deal-breaker for you. Edit. Honestly, men rarely change, so if I were you I'd go ahead and cut my losses. There's lots of men who weren't racist and misogynistic shitbags growing up. Edit 2. Electric Boogaloo. Gonna add the dreaded, not all men, disclaimer because apparently pointing out an issue with some, if not most men is an attack on all men face with rolling eyes. I get that these tweets are old, but 5 years isn't that long. For an adult 5 years isn't that long. When transitioning from high school to adulthood 5 years is an eternity. People do dumb shit in high school that they don't do as adults, especially guys. Have you ever discussed issues or race, equality etc. with him? Do you know what his current beliefs are, or at least what he wants you to believe they are? If you found it so easily, then future employers will, and it may ruin his future career. I know the account is his because there's picture of him. Just some food for thought. The picture being his doesn't mean it is him. Could have been someone harassing him, bullying him by making an account with his picture and saying horrible shit to get other people to bully him as well, so that's a possibility. It isn't exactly hard to take a pic from someone's social media account and plaster it on a new Twitter account. When you inevitably talk to him about it, do not suggest this possibility as it'd be an easy out for him to take, but do be receptive to the idea that this may not have been him. I'm seeing a lot of comments about how people can change, and while it's definitely true, this would still be a deal breaker for me. Most people I knew in high school weren't racist or misogynistic, so these beliefs are definitely not the norm even for teens. I don't think I could be with someone who ever held these beliefs at any point, and it's okay if you feel this way too. I'm also cautious since you've only been dating a month and this is usually the honeymoon phase. My stance would change a lot if you'd been together for over a year and he'd shown no signs of holding these beliefs. I'd talk to him about finding the account before you decide what you want to do. Judge his response, and decide if you still want to pursue the relationship. It's not so much confronting, it's asking. And asking is fair. Hey new boyfriend that I don't know well, I was hunting around for some pictures of you and I found your old online account, name of account. The posts were interesting. What's up with that? And pay attention to how he responds. Is he defensive? Embarrassed? Evasive? Angry because you snooped? Deflection, blaming, etc. And when you say, I have no idea who he is anymore, remember you've only been around him a couple of weeks and he's probably in his best behavior. So in fact, you don't have much of an idea who he is anyway. Good luck op. 5 years is 20% of the time he's been alive. The Google machine says your brain isn't done developing until 25. I look back at the way I was at 16 to 25 and wow. I was a dipshit and an asshole. If someone I used to know told me I used to be an ass because XYZ, I'd be at, I hear you, and you're right. I'm sorry I was an ass. I am genuinely ashamed of the person I was 5 years ago. 5 years can be an incredibly long time. I hope I am ever judged by who I was back then. I'd bet money if you talked to him about it, he'd be genuinely apologetic and wish you'd never seen it. Let's all be real, fuck us for our past. Everyone has a past. Rather than rejecting it, you should leave the door of change for him. It's also a valid thing to ask him about that and know if he believes he changed. If we close the door forever, there's no room for someone to redeem himself. I would bring it up. His response will tell you how he feels today, and people can change a lot between 20 and 25. I grew up in a weird town, read that as super racist, and if I had been online a lot when I was younger I am sure my social media profiles would be full of things that are terrible. I don't feel or think that way now though, and while I don't rationalize my previous stuff I apologize for it and accept when people won't accept me for it. It's a new relationship, have the conversation and go from there. 5 years, especially in your early 20s, is a very long time. Just look at yourself from 5 years ago. I bet you're almost a completely different person now too. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. That being said, just bring it up in conversation. See how he reacts. I expect it'll be with some shame and something like, yeah, that was a very bad phase and I'm glad I know better now. If so, it's all good. If he gets very defensive or otherwise reacts very negatively, then you might have more of a problem on your hands. I mean, 5 years is a long time and more than enough to change your views pretty radical, but also, 1 month is basically nothing. If you don't want to deal with this, don't. 5 years ago when you're 50 versus 5 years ago when you're 25 are completely different. Put the Christmas collage on hold. After only a month, don't put that much effort into a gift, and that also isn't enough time to accurately say how he, always, acts. It's possible he's changed but you need more time to gather more information about him before you go all in. Personally, I'm not the guy the first was 5 years ago but everyone's different. Just talk to him about it and be honest with how you feel. He should delete that. It's not a good look for employers. I was a terrible person 5 years ago. The world has changed my views for sure. You would be surprised what some high school guys can think about the world before they really get to know it. Fresh out of high school he would have been very immature and stupid. 5 years is definitely enough time to change. People say and do a lot of dumb stuff when they are young. Even if you break up with him, tell him why so he can delete it. It could make his job prospects a lot worse in the future. For fuck's sake. This is what I hate about our generation. People can change. You're applying cancel culture to your own relationship. If you like the man you're with now, you like the man you're with now. Love him for him, not who he was in the past. He's not a child rapist or a serial killer. He shouldn't have to apologize about shit he said 5 years ago. Talk to him about the opinions and see if he still believes in them. Then carry on as usual if you can tolerate the way he thinks now. 5 years is long from high school to adulthood. People change. I would hate to be judged on shit from high school. 5 years in relation to high school is quite a big difference. Has he given you any reason to believe he is the same? You need to talk to him, but keep in mind 5 years when you're young is like a lifetime. People grow a whole lot in their early 20s. I cringe to think what might be sitting in cyberspace from my younger days. MySpace, anyone? Yes, people can change that much. I went from drug dealer to financial advisor over the course of almost 20 years and surviving a stroke, so yeah, people can change a lot. I'd say there was an era on Twitter when it was generally cool to tweet like that. The more out of touch with reality and anti-humanity your tweet, the more Twitter-worthy. Take people for who they are today. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow's far. People are who they are today. I also feel like this is something that should be easy to talk about as a couple. For me, the red flag would be in wanting to avoid talking about it. Man shrugging, medium dark skin tone. People generally do change, and teenage boys have a tendency to act tough and cool to impress each other. Trust the person you love and have gotten to know now. That's who your boyfriend is in the present. Accept that people do change, and can change quite drastically in even a few months, let alone 5 whole years. 5 years is a long time, my guy. What was funny 5 years ago has changed. I seriously wouldn't put stock into it. Sexist, misogynistic, sounds like your toxic femininity is showing. You're engaging in misandry and you don't even realize it. If you do, you must not care. An account from high school? No big deal. How was your behavior like 5 years ago? A month isn't a long time. Maybe you should tell him you can't get over it, and tell him why, and suggest he deletes the account and the tweets. Think who you were 5 years ago. Did you change? Think even 1 year ago from 20 to 21, did you feel like you've changed? He probably has. It's not like he's 70 and stuck in his ways if you never thought this about him before. At the very least, it's worth talking about what he believes today. I just want to say that things can change and people can change. If you were to find my middle school Facebook, you would find a slew of Holocaust jokes and racist jokes and shit like that. Here I am about 8 years later and my Instagram is the exact opposite. And I've worked to remedy my past as best as possible, but I acknowledge its existence. For him that must be the same. Ask him about it. How has he changed? How does he acknowledge his relationship to the past? That should help decide how you move forward. You are well within your rights to use this as a deal breaker. People can change in that amount of time, especially at that age. However, it's not guaranteed, and you're at the beginning of your relationship. This is the stage where you're basically dating his agent. He's representing the best parts of himself that he thinks will attract you. Honestly, you probably are too. That's just how we tick. You could one by one present the evidence to him and ask him to state exactly why it's bad and why he's not like that anymore. 99% he's gonna get defensive and let you know who he really is. Gonna get downvoted in oblivion for this. But is no one finding it a bit creepy, stalkerish that they've only been dating for a month, and she's already making a Christmas photo montage, digging trough his Twitter, and then posting about questionable behavior? Maybe someone is fishing for some internet points. No one here can tell you anything. You need to ask him. Talk to him about it. See how he reacts, what he has to say. If he's an arsehole, he'll react badly to being reminded of it, and you'll know. If you want an opinion from someone in high school, if he's really changed, then he will not try to make excuses for what he did, like, I was young, or, it was just a joke. Instead he would and should apologize for what he said. From experience, shit like that can permanently stain someone's life, so he should own up to it. 20-year-old me and 25-year-old me were not the same people. TBH, it's extremely possible that he has changed. I prob said a ton of stuff in HS that was fucked up and would never agree with now, 5 years after. A lot of dudes in high school just do that to be edgy, and there's a huge immaturity factor for guys at that age. I just talked to him about it, but I feel like he prob has changed. Especially if he abandoned that account 5 years ago, prob knew it was wrong, and gave you no indication he's still like this. You sound like a bit of a stalker. Looking through old accounts to make a collage for him. Sounds like a total lie. 5 years are not a lot of you are thinking 30 to 35, but when you are thinking about a high school teenager and a 25-year-old male now, yes, they are a lot. Maybe he has changed and grown up now. In my opinion, you can't define someone from his high school Twitter. I mean, do you remember what things you used to believe or say when you were in high school? For sure they have changed now. I'd say talk to him and see what he has to say. A lot can change in 5 years. My political and personal views are completely different now than they were 5 years ago. Look, people change. And they can change a lot in the space of 5 years, particularly from 20 yo to 25 yo. I've seen many of my friends evolve around that age. I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. As many others said, 5 years in this moment is an eternity. Sometimes it's one very strong and specific experience that start a huge change in yourself. I can say that I've changed a lot in these past 7 years, but specifically a 2Y period a couple of years ago was when I changed the most. If you want to talk this through with him is your choice. I'd just say, it's only been a month and it might do good for the two of you to discover each other in the moment, acknowledging changes, rather than fearing their absence and ignoring the present. If he's still the person he was in 2015, it won't take long before it'll come up anyway. I mean, 5 years from high school into adulthood is a hella long time. I am now way the same person I was 5 years ago. All I'm saying is, high school is tough, keep an open mind and talk to him.